Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to the Rangers Rabble podcast on a Sunday evening. Yes, Sunday evening, unusual, but this is a special one tonight because we are joined by Theo Delaney of the Spurs Show. Theo, how are you?
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. No, pleasure's all ours. Pleasure is all ours. So yeah, we're here to speak about Mikey Moore. So, Theo, when this story developed, was this a move you seen coming off, or were you surprised at the destination that he landed?
Not particularly surprised at the destination. There was speculation as to whether he'd be sent out on loan or not because he's that good that some people thought he'd be kept behind to play in the first team, or at least be rotated in and out the first team, because obviously you've got Champions League this year as well as Premier League. But we have got a lot of players in those positions, and I think we'll be buying other players in those positions. And I think it makes sense from our point of view to send him somewhere hopefully to get first team football, because he wouldn't. They obviously worked out they wouldn't play all the time, or perhaps enough to help his development at Spurs. And really, that's the last thing that he needs. He needs to get experience in a high level of physical, tough, week in, week out football. So I mean, I would have thought Rangers as good a place as any to get that. Certainly, there won't be any lack of pressure on him. When you go and play for Rangers, you've got to win every week, otherwise there's problems. So that'll be good for him, or it won't. It'll be kill or cure.
Well, this is it, and you just said before we went live, this is going to be the making of him, because you think this will be his loan move that's going to either make or break him at Spurs, isn't it? So you'll see after the end of this loan whether he'll make it at Spurs.
Yeah, I mean, loans are funny. I mean, Harry Kane did 7 loans before he finally worked his way into the Spurs team. So I think there must be lots of people who would have thought, listen, if he was going to get in that Spurs team at Spurs, he'd have done it by now. 7 loans, 7 different clubs. And when we first saw him come in the team, I mean, he was 20 odd by the time he finally did start getting in the team. Many of us were totally unconvinced by him early doors. I mean, I'll hold my hands up. I wasn't the only one who thought, he's a trier, but I don't think he's ever going to cut it at the top level. And look what happened. So I think the thing about Mikey Moore is there's been a lot of hype and there's been a lot of excitement amongst Spurs fans because he has immense talent. He has always overachieved at every level. He's always looked like the best player by miles. I think he played for our under-21s when he was like 16. That's how good he was. Yeah, and of course, to do that, you've got to be very good, but you've also got to be pretty strong as well, because you're playing with bigger, more physically mature people. So he's got that as well. He did a bit of boxing when he was young. I think he comes from one of those families, I think, where they've been on it right the way through. They've supported him. They've done whatever they've needed to do because they recognise this as a special talent. And in terms of natural gift, I mean, he's actually more naturally gifted. This is a big statement, but he's got more natural gifts than Harry Kane had, certainly at that same age. But, we've had loads of, all big clubs have these players emerge every couple of years that are the geniuses. And you look at the footage of them for the youth teams and everything, and they literally beat 5 players and smack it into the top corner. You hear tales of scored 4 in a 5-0 victory and made the other one, But this isn't the first player who has come through with that. I mean, the last one before this was about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe a bit more. Marcus Edwards was the one. And he was going to be, I mean, he had immense talent, he's the new Gascoigne or whatever. And he just didn't come through. It just didn't work for whatever reason. And he ended up going abroad. And now, funny enough, through a circuitous route, he's back in the Premier League. He ended up at Sporting Lisbon, made a name for himself there, did really well. And he's back at Burnley at Sporting for about 8 million quid. So I would love to come on here and say you've got Wayne Rooney, because Wayne Rooney could do it at 17, obviously. But I don't know. And that is the intriguing thing. From our point of view, we want him to succeed because we want him to come back. We want him to leave a kind of adolescent and come back a man, because we know he's got all the gifts. But this is the great unknown. This is what we're expecting to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, looking, obviously, the limited footage that Rangers fans can see, because he obviously hasn't played a hell of a lot for the first team at Spurs. He's obviously played a lot of youth games and stuff like that. What sort of profile does Mikey Moore have?
Well, he can play anywhere. You know, nowadays most teams, I don't know what formation Rangers are playing, but most teams are playing 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. So he can play in any of those attacking positions. He can play left, right. More often played left, but can play right, or he can play in the number 10. And I imagine, I haven't seen him do it, but I imagine he'd be a perfectly decent centre forward as well. He's, you know, he's got all the skills. He's got an incredible touch. He's got a good burst of pace. He beats players easily, it seems at times. He can go past 2 or 3 players. He can finish. So he's got all of those attributes. That's why he's so exciting, and that's why everyone's so excited about him. But I've seen him do amazing things, and I've seen him fade away. So, for example, probably the most interesting moment in his development was last autumn. He started to get in the first team squad, and he came on in a game against AZ Alkmaar in the Europa League, who are a decent Dutch side, you know. And he had a spell, about a 20-minute spell in the second half, where he was just completely on fire. He was taking them apart. He was going past people for fun, and you're thinking, this kid's 17. He's the best player on the pitch by miles. It's only really about 20 minutes. After that, they got a handle on him and stuff. But he really was extraordinary. And afterwards, famously, Maddison said he thought we had Neymar on the left wing for those 20 minutes. That's how good he seemed to be. Anyway, I was drooling. You know, I'm watching at home on the TV thinking, wow, this is it. What have we got on our hands here? So the very next game, Ange Postecoglou picks him to start in the Premier League away at Crystal Palace. Now, that is a different kettle of fish altogether. So Palace obviously have seen, you know, they do their homework, very, very well coached, serious team, who are a good team and good players, but they're also, like all Premier League teams, they're pretty brutal and pragmatic. They do whatever you need to do. And basically, he just couldn't get in the game at all. They doubled up on him at times. They certainly roughed him up, pushed him around, you know, and he didn't get anywhere. He went off, you know, I think probably, I can't remember exactly, but probably after about 50, 60 minutes, hadn't really got anywhere. And I remember watching it, I watched the other game, and then I watched this game, and I thought, yeah, there we see the difference. So he's a kid, he's playing away at a tough team in the Premier League, and he can't yet do that. He can't get a hold of it, because that's a hard thing for any footballer to do, let alone a 17-year-old. So that's him in a nutshell. He is the skill to match anyone. Natural gifts. You know, I mean, he's an absolute. There's no one. He can be as good as anyone. Can he get the grit and the nastiness that you need to do the other stuff? Because that is the final piece in the jigsaw, as we all know. And some of them get it, and some of them don't. Most of them don't. Most of these kids that come through, in my experience, I've been watching Tottenham. I went to my first game in 1971. So I've been watching Tottenham a very long time. And, you know, I can remember all of these, and most of them, they come through, you're really excited, you see them a few games. And I was always been the one to go, he's going to be great, he's going to get 100 caps for England. We've got, you know, and then you just remember them all. They just fade away. They end up in the second division, the third division, or in Belgium, or, you know, Greece or something. So I've got really high hopes, higher than I've mostly had for these players with Mikey, because he's already done it a little bit in the first team, and he's done it at every level for England and everything like that. So I think on balance, I think he's a great prospect. But now is the time, as I keep saying, this is where we're going to find out. And I don't know whether he'll cope, because presumably what will happen with the Rangers is he'll get up against defences, and he'll start to play his tricks and go round them and stuff, and they'll start to kick him. I guess, I'm assuming that's certainly what would happen in the Premier League, and it'll happen in Scotland. And it's how he reacts to that. Can he deal with it? Can his temperament deal with it? But can he physically deal with it? Can he give it back and all of that stuff? That's what we're going to find out.
You're just speaking there about having to, you know, sort of adjust to the rough and tumble of Scottish football, which is completely different from Premier League football in England. Has he got, do you think, the mentality as a 17-year-old to withstand the sort of pressure of, you know, tough tackling, you know, being marked tight, maybe going a good bit of the game out of the game, and then having to come to life at the right moment and create stuff? Is he that sort of strong mentality wise?
I just don't know. This is what we're going to find out. We just don't know yet, because that example I just gave, where he was brilliant on the Wednesday night or Thursday night, then on the Sunday he was, anonymous, or the Monday night, whatever it was. He was pretty much anonymous against Crystal Palace, just couldn't get going at all. So that suggests that, has he got the skills? Can he do it at a quite high level? Yes. But can he really do it when it's not just about playing football, when it's about toughing it mentally and physically, being tough and being resilient, and not letting them intimidate you, and not getting disheartened and all of that stuff? Because that's the question, and you're asking the right question, but that is the question we're about to get answered. I think, on balance, I say I don't know. If someone put a gun to my head, I would say yeah. I think he probably has, because he's quite physically tough. As I say, he's always played in older age groups than himself. That suggests he's physically robust, because you're going to have to be. Yeah, and as I say, he's had a family around him who seem to know what you need to do. He did a bit of boxing when he was a kid. That suggests to me that they knew they wanted to toughen him up, and they did that. So I think they'll have taken measures to toughen him up. On another podcast I do, Live Calls, I had a guy on who's actually a friend of mine, who is Peter Crouch's dad. Peter Crouch's dad tells this story about when Peter Crouch was like 16. He played for Tottenham Youth before he went into QPR and got the first team. Ended up back at Tottenham, of course. But his dad used to say to him, Peter, you're a good footballer, but you're too nice. You've got to stop letting these defenders push you around and elbow you and push you around and not do anything about it. And he kept saying this, and he said that Peter was too nice a kid. And he took him to a training match one night at Tottenham in what they used to call the ball court at White Lane, and it happened again. He was so cross because Peter just wouldn't take this advice on board. He would allow himself to be pushed around, that he drove all the way home to the other side of East London and left him there, to the other side of London, from Tottenham to the other side of London, and just left him, didn't say anything to him. And young Peter Crouch had to leave and somehow get public transport home. It's probably before mobile phones as well. Jeez. And when he got home 2 hours later, he said, where did you go? What happened? He said, I told you, and you've been ignoring me, and you've got to toughen up. And he always this story, and it's because, and then, of course, he did toughen up. Peter Crouch did toughen up. He got the grit and the skills. Kids, it's the last thing they have to do, and we don't know yet. But I suspect he'll be all right. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, those defenders are good. They'll be. Also, he's like, who does he think he is? He's 17. He's come from bloody Tottenham Hotspur, Champions League club. He probably earns a load of money, more than most of the defenders he's up against. And they're probably thinking, you're not going to come around and start running rings around us. We'll show you what's what. So it will be a great test for him, and he may or may not pass it. But I think, on balance, my suspicions say that he'll be all right.
That's good to hear. A couple of questions come in from people in the comments. Ian Thompson, Theo, do you think he'll come up here on the proviso that he must play regularly, or do you think that will be down to us and us alone?
Well, I always. For me, I don't think that any manager worth his salt will say, we'll take him and he's guaranteed to play every week. That is madness. I mean, if he's not good enough, or he's just not strong enough, you can't play. You can't be manager of Rangers and say, sorry, everyone, I know we keep losing and we've got 10 players who are really tough and big and really giving it everything, and a kid who can't really hack it. But I did promise I'd play the kid every week. So it's not my fault. You can't do that. And again, loans are funny. All of our young prospects usually go out on loan, and very often they don't play all the time. I mean, we've got a kid called Dane Scarlett who's been really highly rated, and he's still in the first team squad now. He must be 2021 now, but he's been going out on loan for a few years, and he very often has gone to play. I mean, he went to Ipswich. I've got family who support Ipswich, so I'm very in touch with what they do. And he went to Ipswich, just couldn't get in the team that year when they went up from the Championship. And then eventually he came back. So for me, I doubt very much that anyone at Rangers has said he will play every week. That's a guarantee. I think he's going to have to earn his place in the side.
I think that's a fair comment, absolutely. And one of your own fans from India, to be fair to him, the way Ange had wingers set up, they didn't get much space and time to get comfortable on the ball. Whenever Moore got time in the ball, Elfsborg, he did well. So is it maybe who he's playing against? As in, it could be at home to somebody, it could be an away tie in Europe. It just depends from what Lily White's India is saying, that it's almost like it depends on the type of game that Mikey Moore might come alive.
Yeah, of course. I mean that applied to any winger. He's right. I mean, a winger wants space and time like any good footballer. You give them any space and time, then if they're really good, you're going to get punished. And that's true. Mikey Moore has the skills. This is what we're talking about. You give him pace and time, there's no question he will have a field day. But if you're going to double up on him, or you're going to get tight on him all the time, and that's the test, is whether he can deal with that. And yeah, when he had a bit more space and time, that's when he shone. But I think, as I said, that applied to any flair player in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. And one from our Wolf Marshall, who does the podcast with me, Mikey's end product is decent. Is it decent goals and assist wise?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't played, as we all know, he hasn't played that many times in the first team. He's not often started. There was a European game, maybe that was the Elfsberg game. We were at home and we were struggling a little bit, but he started the game and he played pretty well, actually, throughout the game. And then they brought on some other kids at the end, and suddenly the other kids, both of them, came on and scored, and he hadn't scored. And it got to like the 93rd minute, and I remember thinking to myself, I feel sorry for Mikey Moore, because he's the real star of the kids, but the other kids have come on and scored, and he hasn't scored. And it's the 93rd minute, and there was a brilliant thing, which was another great cameo from him, where you just saw him thinking exactly what I was thinking, which was, I can't have this. They've come on and just come in and got a couple of tap-ins at the end. I haven't even scored, and I'm the main guy. I've played from the beginning. I've played pretty well. And he got the ball, and he broke free, and he scored one-on-one and put it away with great aplomb. And I thought, oh, that's him. That's his. He's thinking, I'm not having this. And he can certainly finish. He scored a lot of goals for the youth teams and stuff. Certainly finished. Certainly. Yeah, he's got. As I keep saying, if I've sounded at all negative, I've got absolutely no doubts about his quality. His quality is exceptional. I mean, really exceptional. It's just this question of whether he can hack it. I think he probably can, but we'll see.
Absolutely. And I suppose the lure of European football as well, right? Rangers have now confirmed at the very worst Europa League status. They're still obviously trying to qualify for the Champions League. So there's maybe an aspect of, Tottenham looking at that and thinking, well, if he plays regular for Rangers, if they get into the sort of latter stages of Europe, qualifying, there's a chance that, we can see how he can cope in the European arena, and then that'll help you guys, won't it?
And that actually works both ways, because most of his first team experience is in Europe. So actually, from Rangers' point of view, they've got a player who's already played deep into the Europa League. He was in the squad, that won it. He's got a medal for winning the Europa League because he played a lot of those games. So he's already played quite a lot. So it's great for us to see him in that environment and see how he gets on. But it's also quite good for Rangers that he won't be entirely new to it. He'll be reasonably familiar with those kind of games.
Absolutely. Yeah. So by all accounts, Theo, from what you've said and, from everything that Rangers fans have seen, we've got a young prospect who is potentially going to be very good, very quick, very skillful. And all the last sort of part of the jigsaw, as you've been saying, is he tough enough for the Scottish League? Would that be a fair assessment?
Absolutely. And as I say, I hope he will be. I think he will be. If he is, then he that's it. Every box is ticked. And it'll be great. Rangers will have a great season with him, and we'll be delighted to welcome him back fully formed, as it were, at the end of it. But this is I'll be watching Rangers. I'll be watching because I'm fascinated to see how he gets on,
Absolutely. I suppose there's potential as well. We could maybe update this in 6 months and see how things are. We'll get you back on and we'll have a chat and see how Theo's progression and how you feel he's progressing.
Yeah, no, I'd like to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully it'll be a revelation.
Yes, absolutely. And just to finish off, I mean, obviously Spurs won the Europa League last year, Champions League this year. Manager change, which was, I think it was universal in the sort of Tottenham support. I think fans outside Spurs were maybe sort of scratching their heads thinking, just won the Europa League and he's got the sack. But I think, as you said before we started, there was more than just that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, actually, a lot of Spurs, but before the Europa League final, I would say at least 2/3 of the fans decided he had to go. After the final, it was more like 2/3 2/3 wanted him to stay, which is insane, you know, on the basis of one game, 1-0 victory in a terrible game. But yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I didn't. I felt a change had to come. You know, I mean, it was. Yeah, I didn't think he had enough in his locker in terms of. He had a very limited repertoire, let's say, tactically and in terms of what he could bring to a team, and that's not good enough now in the Premier League, let alone the Champions League. So I felt that we needed someone a bit more modern and sophisticated, and that's what we've got. So I mean, we'll always love it, and it'll always be a legend for winning that trophy, first big trophy for 17 years and all of that, and that's great. But yeah, I think a change was important. We feel optimistic about this manager. We just need to do a bit more in the transfer market if we're going to make progress, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say Thomas Frank was an interesting appointment, wasn't it? Because he's maybe been overlooked for several jobs in the Premier League. But Spurs seen something in him and thought, no, he's the man for us.
Yeah, they say they looked at 30 different candidates and did a deep analysis on all of them before they got. That's what they claim before they got to Thomas Frank. But when I look at Thomas Frank, I think. You know, he does have all the credentials you want. He's a very likable, charismatic, intelligent man. I think that's important these days. You know, that didn't used to be important in football managers, but I think that's important. And if you look at the way he's got Brentford into the Premier League and kept them there. Tactically, he's been very flexible. They're not a team that have one identity. They play lots of different ways and have played lots of different ways because he adjusts to whatever the circumstances are. And a key stat, which would have had Daniel Levy absolutely salivating, is that if you go on points per pounds spent on wages in the last 3 years in the Premier League, he's top of that league. As a manager, Brentford have got the most points per pound. And that, actually, if you think about it, that's as good a stat as any to measure a manager. So he's way ahead, obviously, of Guardiola and Klopp and all the big managers. They spend a fortune on wages, but Brentford has a tiny wage bill, but he's still, you know, comfortably mid-table finish every time and taking some big scalps along the way. So I think all in all, you know, I'm really, really pleased about him. You never know till you get going, but I'm very, very pleased to have him here.
Absolutely. Well, Theo, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on speaking Mikey Moore, and I hope the Rangers fans have got a little bit of an insight in what you've said, and, you know, we're excited to have him. I think that's one thing we should say. We're really excited to have him, and hopefully, as you said, he can come to us, make a fist of it, and then go back to you guys even better.
Well, then we'll all be happy.
Absolutely. Everyone's a winner. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
great to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, the Spurs Show that Theo hosts is on YouTube. Check that out. As I said to Theo, we'll maybe revisit this in January and have a little 6-month chat and see how Mikey has fared over his first 6 months. But thanks to everybody for joining us today. Thanks you to Theo for coming on. Hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll speak very, very soon.